All right, guys, let's talk about restaurant cleaning. So this is going to be a step-by-step guide on, pro tips for cleaning restaurant environments, right? So again, the same as the other ones, I tied in, time estimates from ChatGPT to kind of give us an idea of how long it's going to take, right? So we'll start with the dining area, right? So these are the tables and the chairs, and it says about 10 to 15 minutes per section. Okay, how big of a section? I don't know what ChatGPT thinks. So anyways, the instructions for the dining area. Wipe down all the tables and chairs with a food safe disinfectant. You're probably going to want to use the where did it go? Well, 409 most likely, just because it can be a greasy sort of environment there. So anyways, so you'll want to do that. Any sort of areas that are, very commonly touched, light switches, backs of chairs, things like that, you're going to want to hit with the Lysol, okay? Getting that stuff disinfected is really important. Check under the tables and chairs for crumbs and spills. That's one of the first things they're going to go in and look for is under those tables. Get around the edges with that vacuum. That's where stuff spills. Okay, that's most of the reason why they're having you out there, is to get underneath those tables and chairs and in between the sections of the table or the chair and the booth, right? So anywhere in there, there's a little crack, there's going to be crumbs, fortune cookies, whatever it may be. All right. Here's some pro tips, right? Use a dedicated cloth for tables and never reuse the restroom ones there. I keep talking about cross-contamination. This is where it can be real public health issue if we don't, right? So, make sure we keep those cloths separated. There is a bin of colored cloths. This might be a really, really, really good opportunity to pull those ones out and use red for sewage and, blue for, eating surfaces or something like that, whatever. Check chair backs and legs for sticky residue. Maybe somebody spilled their soy sauce or whatever it may be. We're gonna, again, most of this you're probably gonna be using either the 409 or the Dawn, okay? The Dawn is incredible for this, and it's industrial strength. So I might just take that back. Instead of the 409, say Dawn. Check the chairs, make sure and wipe all those down. Even if there's no, greasy, sticky stuff, we want to make sure that it's all clean and sanitary, okay? Somebody might have farted on that chair. Maybe. You want to, the next thing we'll talk about is the dining area, right? The floors, okay? ChatGPT says 10 to 20 minutes per section, all right? So here's some instructions. Go ahead and sweep and vacuum underneath the tables, along the walls, all the areas where you can see there either might be dust accumulating or food or crumbs or whatever it may be. Sometimes when they're vacuuming every night, it's got a beater brush and that's just kicking it everywhere, right? So you're going to want to sweep and vacuum. Like I said, always use a vacuum. Mop with a degreasing floor cleaner, okay? Again, this is a place where you're probably going to want to use that Pine Sol. That stuff is great. It's going to disinfect, it's going to smell good, the whole thing. Most of these things we're going to want to use a caution sign, because if anybody does enter, whether it's the owner or whatever, then that'll be up. Sometimes people wander through doors. We're only going to be doing these jobs after hours. We won't be doing cleaning jobs while customers are there. That's really important to know. So if you get dispatched out to a restaurant, then just know it's going to be after the time that they close, usually at the time they close, so they can give you access and tell you how to lock up, all right? Again, pro tips, do the floor last on your way out. That's the step you're going to be doing, making sure it's done. Because as we're working, you don't want to, resoil the carpets and have to vacuum again and again and again. So get into the corners, get underneath fixed booths. You've got different attachments to do all that stuff. Make sure you get the dust. There's that attachment with the brushes on it. That's great for kicking dust off. We want to see if there is any dust on the blinds or on the window sills or anything like that. All right, so just basically just look around, tell yourself, okay, what do we got? Okay, this corner, there, floor to ceiling, what do we got? What do we got? Look for anything dirty and clean it. So anyways, restrooms, it says 12 to 18 minutes per restroom. Okay, so there's going to be at least 2. So, it depends on the condition, what kind of restaurant, okay? But, what we want to do is go in there and disinfect the toilets, the urinals, the sinks, the mirrors, the partitions. That means wiping everything down. Again, use just one cloth, right, to do the toilets. And, you don't want to use that anywhere else. So that's really important because, God, you don't want to put sewage anywhere else in a restaurant, I swear. But anyways, do the urinals, the sinks, the mirrors, the partitions, wipe the walls around the sink and the baseboards, get those. Restock toilet paper. Remember, we have our fancy toilet paper, perfect for restaurants, okay? Let the toilet bowl cleaner sit for a while, right? So you don't want to put this in and just start scrubbing right away. You want to let the chemicals do the job. Pay close attention to door handles and faucet bases, okay? Those are really important because that's where people are touching after they just went potty. So we have a kitchen and food prep areas, right? So this says 10 to 15 minutes. What we want to do is wipe down any prep tables they might have, cutting boards, counter space with a degreaser and food safe sanitizer, right? So this is the Dawn, all right? Definitely the Dawn, and this is good for industrial strength cleaning, just like a restaurant. So be sure to scrub the backsplashes, the walls, underneath the shelves, right? So there's a couple different things with restaurants. There's a difference between grime and dirt and food prep stuff. So you're gonna run into 2 different things. You might run into food on the floor, but it's been like from that day. That's not filth, that's food prep, okay? You go in there and you see stuff that's been stompled in there, or like it's just like filthy, that's dirt. And usually when we're doing those ones, it was a referral from the health department. They got shut down by the health department, something like that. So anyways, use food safe products only. That's important. If you have any question, call, right? And we'll let you know. Work from, clean to dirty areas to avoid cross-contamination. So again, this is one of those things, for the most part, you're working from the back and working your way forward. And, anytime you hit a bathroom or anything, like you wouldn't want anywhere near food, get it out of there. So anyways, as far as like the kitchen floors and mats, it's going to take about 15 to 20 minutes, according to ChatGPT. Sweep the debris from all the kitchen floors. This actually might be, the sort of area you do want to use a broom. We have some, what do they call them? Push brooms at Ops you can get. But then you're going to want to mop with a degreasing solution. The neat thing about the Dawn is you can use this as a mop, detergent as well. So you'll probably want to do that inside the kitchen, because we want to get that grease up, because if somebody slips and falls, even though they also have these fancy shoes, it would be really bad for the restaurant, right? And that's why they're having us clean, is to get that stuff out. Clean and rinse under rubber mats and then hang to dry. Usually what I'll do is I'll take those out back and I'll hose them off and kind of like prop them up against something to dry until we're done. And then I'll bring them back in as the last step. But it's really, really important not to forget them, because then they'll be calling you. So, some pro tips on this one. If it's a deep clean, you're going to want to scrub the floor edges and corners by hand. It is quicker. Use hot water for greasy buildup. Remember the TACT, T-A-C-T, temperature, okay? That's going to help break that stuff down. So you're going to also want to clean the equipment, exteriors, fridge, oven, fryer, things like that. It says it thinks it's going to take 10 or 15 minutes, right? And so wipe down all the reachable exterior surfaces, focus on handles, control panels, and visible grease, right? You don't move heavy equipment unless you're trained to do it. Sometimes these things are hooked up to gas lines. We don't want to blow the place up. Okay. Use stainless steel polish, so that it looks nice and shiny. And then we're gonna do some focus on the entryway and host station. Right. This says takes about 5 to 8 minutes. So basically, clean the door glass, the handles, the threshold. Make sure there's no dust there or anything like that. Wipe and organized, the host or takeout counter, right? There's usually like some sort of podium or something like that there. You want to make sure you get that clean. It's the first thing they're going to look at when they walk through the door. Polish the door handles if applicable. Sometimes they're made out of brass. We have some special stuff to clean brass that works great. I think it's called Brasso or something. Check and make sure you did a good job on those floor mats, because they're going to look at those for sure. Trash removal and final touches, right? And so empty all the trash and recycling bins, wipe down any bin exteriors because there probably dribbles out there. Replace the liners and sanitize the bin area, right? And so again, in restaurants, you're probably going to use a lot of Lysol. Some pro tips: make sure you use gloves, avoid overfilling of garbage cans, check for hidden bins behind corners and between, different, prep stations, things like that. It says total average time, is going to take. Obviously, it varies based on restaurant size and traffic. A small sit-down restaurant, dining room, kitchen, and restrooms typically takes about 2.5 to 4 hours for a thorough clean. So, heavily used fast food restaurants may require additional time for grease removal and detail work. Okay, so that's how you clean a restaurant. Thanks, guys.